Hello, I'm Richard Leviathan. I'm Marshal of the Barony of Smoking Rocks in the East Kingdom. I've been fortunate for the past 2 years to work with Master Padraig McInry, the Earl Marshal of the East Kingdom, on an experimental flail. A couple of years ago he approached me with the Anstiora regulations for their experimental flail and said, let's try doing it. So we've been playing with it, and so this is a series of videos on what you need to make one, how to make one, and how to use one. So this is the beginning one. We're going to start with some of the ingredients and the tools you'll need, because a flail is a fairly involved ingredients. You're going to need a 24-inch piece of rattan. You're going to need a 9-inch piece of vinyl garden hose, some red and some green electrical tape, a medium stuff-a-ball Kong, which we're going to refer to from now on as a flanged Kong, or a large snowman Kong, which we will refer to as the snowman Kong. You'll also need some 1/4-inch nylon polyester cord. This stuff is, you can pick it up at most hardware stores. It tends not to stretch, tends to be very durable, and this is what we're going to use as part of the chain for our flail. And you'll also need strapping tape and duct tape and a little bit of closed cell foam, and a small plastic button about the size of a quarter or a little larger, which we'll explain the use for in a bit. Thank you. First thing we're going to do is we're going to take our 24-inch piece of rattan, and we're going to use the sander or sandpaper if you don't have a sander, and we're going to round off the top edge so it's not sharp, so it doesn't wear on your cord. It's nice and smooth, there's no sharp edges to create any wear, so that's going to be our first step. Alright, the next step is to drill the holes that our chain is going to go through. So we start 1 inch in, and we mark, and then we make a 1/4 churn mark, and a 1/4 churn mark, and a 1/4 churn mark. So with a 4-inch span, we'll have 4 holes here on each quarter of the rattan. The finished product should leave you with something that looks a bit like this. You melt your tips with some gloves, thick leather gloves, and make them as skinny as possible so they'll make it easier for them to slide through things. Our next step is to get a little button made out of some barrel plastic. It has to be about the size of a quarter, approximately. Not necessarily the shape of a quarter, but approximate size. What we're going to do then is we're going to put 4 1/4-inch holes in it. We were also using pieces of leather for this, but we have, after 2 years, did have one head come off with leather, so we're going to try something with a plastic button now. I suppose if you had a thick piece of hard leather, you could still use leather. But we're trying with the plastic because we don't think this is going to possibly ever come out of the Kong. So this is our newest fix, and should work fine. You thread your cord through the button by putting one cord to where you have 3 feet hanging out one end, coming out another hole, and 3 feet hanging out the other. And then you do the same thing on the other side, to where you're left with 3 feet on either side on this side. Then you have to bring all 4 of your pieces together at the bottom with some duct tape. The sturdier the duct tape, the better, because you're going to be pulling on this some, and you don't want anything to come out. You're going to want to make a nice long twist with it so that you have something to grip onto once you've all these little holes in it. So, good way to intimidate your enemy. Frighten them with the noise made by your scary weapon, which is not so scary, really. Okay, we're going to thread it through the larger hole in the Kong, out through the smaller hole in the Kong. Once you get the tape in there, you're going to grab by the pliers, You're going to give it a good little pull with your needle nose pliers. And then you're going to get your button to where it's right about there. And that's how it's going to look. See, there's a very small hole in the other end with both Kongs. The Snowman Kong and this Kong have very tiny holes on one end and big holes on the other. And so we're going to use that to our advantage by pulling the button through the big hole so that it can't possibly pass through the small hole on the other side. But to help me with this, I'm going to need a strong lad. Can I get a strong lad over here? This is William, our strong lad. He's going to have to grab a hold of the Kong while we pull. There we go. Now the button is securely inside and hopefully not going to go anywhere, and your head will be secure. Our next step is to take our 9 inches of stiff vinyl hose, be the cheapest garden hose you can find, and you're going to run the tape through it. And when it gets to the other end, grab your needle nose pliers again. If you have a slightly smaller internal diameter hose, like I've had on flails in the past, you may use a little bit of Pam cooking spray to lubricate it to get the cord through it. But this is a fairly good diameter, so it seems to be working. You're going to pull it right up to the head of the flail, and then our next step will be to tie this to the handle. Your next step, take some tape, put it on your ends, and you're going to run them through the holes that you've drilled and pull them all the way through. There we go. Now, once we have this on tight, snugged up here, pull all our pieces through. We're going to one by one start tying off a nice overhand knot here. You'll notice we have a lot of extra cord, which is fine because we can cut it and trim it after we're done tying off our knots. So once we have got all our strings threaded through, we've tied our knots off, and we've cut off our excess of cord, this is what we should have. We should have something that looks relatively like this. And as you can see, we're going to eliminate a lot of issues that people have had with flails in the past, because we don't really have a chain flail, it's more of a hinged flail. It hinges here, it swivels here, but it doesn't really wrap like a chain. And we're going to do some... Your next step is to wrap the knots in lots and lots and lots of strapping tape, because strapping tape is structural and it's cool. We like it. You're also going to take a piece of closed cell foam, and you're going to wrap it around the center of the hose, and you're going to wrap that with a lot of nice structural strapping tape as well. And this will prevent it from going into anybody's grill at all. It was a bit of a concern, although it's not much of an issue, and Ann Store has not had any issues with it either. So, but this is just a little preventative thing we've thrown on there as well, just to address some concerns that some people had. Oh, okay. That's it.
Yeah, thank you. I love you too.
Now that I've shaved my handle down with my draw knife and drilled a hole for a lanyard and made a lanyard, because lanyards are very important because we don't want this crazy device flying off in the audience and hitting somebody. So I'm going to wrap the handle and put a lanyard on it, and we'll be almost done. Alright, after I put my lanyard through, I like to take a little piece of leather and wrap it around a few times and attach it with some strapping tape, because this keeps it in my hand and keeps it from flying out of my hand a little less. Well, now that the handle's wrapped, we put our red and green alternating tape to show this is an experimental weapon, and we've wrapped up the rest of the strapping tape with duct tape. The flail is, for all essential purposes, finished. You can do anything else you want to beautify it that doesn't interfere with these basic things. We've had people wrap some leather around it here, stain the handle that's exposed, but pretty much this is it, as you see it.